Let's review AEW Dynamite and NXT, go over the ratings and all that other fun stuff next on the Squared Circle Cycle Babble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Ralph, I think we had a bounce back week for both shows, AEW Dynamite and NXT. Ratings might dictate otherwise, but we'll go over that. So Ralph, let's start with the highlights from both shows. I thought AEW Dynamite was much better this week as far as the in-ring competition is concerned. All the matches, I think, were very, very good. I don't think there was a bad match on the night. NXT delivered in the ring as well. What did you think was the highlight, though?
One highlight from both shows, and I think a lot of people are going to agree with this because this is what most people are talking about, is most definitely Dax versus Jungle Boy. This was a great match. This was a match that looked like two guys that were going out there to be competitive in some type of competition. They made it seem like they were both out there trying to win some type of contest. And to me, and my personal preference, what I like in professional wrestling, that's the type of style that I like. Something that's trying to make the audience believe that this is a legitimate competition, that it's a struggle, that people are getting hurt, that one person is trying to hurt the other. Great story that was told throughout. Great back and forth, great drama. And this was a TV match. And the other encouraging thing is this. Jungle Boy, somebody who a lot of people look to and say, look, that guy's going to be a big star at someday. That guy's got a lot of potential. Last night was one of the first times in a while because let's not forget, he hasn't necessarily been put in many instances or given the opportunities to show what he's truly capable of outside of some tag team matches. He had a singles match with MJF, and he's not there every week. He doesn't perform or he doesn't have a match every single week. So made the best of what he could in this match. And I thought it was great. I thought it was by far the best match between both shows and most certainly my highlight of the night.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. But if I had to pick another highlight on both shows, I'll go to NXT here. And believe it or not, it wasn't even a match itself. I really like what they did with Legado del Fantasma, Kurt Stallion, and Karrion Kross. So throughout the show, we got first Scarlett Bordeaux is doing some backstage thing with tarot cards and cuts a promo. And then we see that Kurt Stallion, that match was canceled because he was attacked from behind. He said it was Legado del Fantasma. Regal goes absolutely crazy, storms the locker room at Legado del Fantasma after he cuts a promo. They deny attacking Kurt Stallion. So next week, that match will happen for the Cruiserweight Championship instead. Santos Escobar lifts up his jacket and sees one of the tarot cards that Scarlett put out or drew in the promo earlier. So this also correlates with the fact that Santos Escobar kind of called out Karrion Kross last week in his promo. So I did like that, and I thought that was just great storytelling. Could Karrion Kross maybe do a storyline with Escobar? And I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of like the idea.
I like it too. I mean, you talk about good dynamic usually, and this is one of the things I talk about all the time. A lot of times, and you've seen this with Karrion Kross, when you get two of the bigger guys, when they try to work together, it doesn't always make for a good match. Of course, you can look throughout the history of pro wrestling and find some matches where the two big guys put on a great show or a great match. Escobar being one of the smaller guys going up against Karrion Kross, who's just most certainly one of the bigger guys in NXT especially, I think that would make for a really good match, especially considering Escobar is one of the more athletic guys. So if they're going to have this feud, I'd be all for it and be into it for sure. Especially considering I think eventually it's inevitable. Karrion Kross and Finn Balor are going to cross paths. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the time where we actually get to see the Demon make a return. If Karrion Kross actually ends up taking the belt off of Finn Balor, and if he ends up, if he doesn't go to the main roster, I think that's all but a certainty at this point. Because Karrion Kross never actually lost the title. But if they need to do this feud in the meantime, I think it would make for a great feud and a great match. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am too. We'll see how the story develops here. You bring up Finn Balor. He's part of the main event. Him and Kyle O'Reilly going up against Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan. A pretty good tag match.
Yeah.
Leads to a beatdown after the match from Pete Dunne, Danny Burch, and Oney Lorcan. Undisputed Era comes in for the save. I've seen some people kind of say that Undisputed Era at this point aren't necessarily needed, but because of their tie-in with Burch and Lorcan and Dunn, it makes a lot of sense. But do you think the Undisputed Era kind of overstaying their welcome in this and just let it be Pete Dunne and Finn Balor?
No, because I mean the other Pete Dunne is essentially in that faction, if you want to call it a faction. It was considered a faction with Pat McAfee before he took his little hiatus here, and I think inevitably it's going to lead to that because you look now the group with Pete Dunne. He's got 3 guys on his side. I think if you include Pat McAfee, now you even it up at 4 and 4. So I think that's all but a certainty as well. I don't have a problem with that. Now, when you say beatdown, though, that's something I do have a problem with. Did you see Pete Dunne more or less airballing his fists and completely missing Finn Balor on those punches?
Yeah.
Pretty bad. But
yeah, it was bad. But, I mean, heat of the moment, I guess, is what you got to say. But it's like the Dark Order, that time where they beat down on the Young Bucks. And speaking of the Dark Order and the Young Bucks, they were the main event on AEW Dynamite. I thought this was a pretty good match. I think they set up the beatdowns for the most part from the Bucks and the Good Brothers pretty well, setting up for the hot tag with John Silver. And I thought his hot tag sequence was very, very good. I think this was, you're not agreeing with me on this. No?
No.
Why not?
We talked about this last week. I was going to let you finish your point, but if you're going to let me interject. So I thought this match had some really good moments, but I think overall, this is just exactly all of the things I don't like about some of these 4-way tag matches, 3-way tag matches, especially these matches that include the Young Bucks in a specific style that they like to work. Now, look, if you like that style, more power to you. Look, it's flashy, shows that they're athletic. But how many times are we going to see the same thing from the Young Bucks? And not even the same thing. It's just like the same style of match. And Silver, I talked about this last week. When you have a wrestling match that really works, like you compare it to Dax and Jungle Boy, when a move is supposed to be impactful and it leads to like a pin or somebody, 2 guys that are out on the canvas, like I'll compare it to like back in the 80s. You remember the spot where they would both go back and forth and they'd both close on each other and they'd both be down on the ground? Yeah. It's a spot that is as old as professional wrestling, probably. But it gives the fans a chance to soak in the moment, and then it builds the drama up from that point, and the fans always react to it. So just because you're going to work a slower style and pick and choose your spots doesn't necessarily mean the fans won't be into it, because most people are saying that the match with Dax and Jungle Boy was very good because they pick and chose their spots, and they took the time to let the things they were doing kind of marinate and sink in, and it helped build drama, and it helped build tension, and it helped show that these guys were competing against each other and trying to hurt each other, and you got lost in the moment. What takes me out of the match is like the main event we saw last night with Silver. Like, okay, that was great. He had a cool comeback. It was fine. But literally they do these things so the fans can just chant, oh, like, and slap their leg along with the moves that are going on. And I saw Reynolds last night in one part of the match. He did a sunset flip, which should have gone into a pin, but he just did it to be flashy because he didn't even try to pin whoever he was doing that move on. Like, I feel like a lot of times in these matches, there's sequences and moves that are done just for the sake of doing sequences and moves to be flashy and just for the sake of doing them. And on top of that, let's not even forget the fact that referee might not even, don't just tell the ref, stay in the back. Get him a chair, let him sit in the back, let him hang out in the front row with the gun club and their headbands, and let him be in the gun club. Give him a personal pass. Let him be a celebrity guest, because you don't need a referee, because these matches all end up being the same thing. A super kick party, a flip spot fest. It's not for me. If you like it, it's your thing, fine. I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't see what it accomplishes. I don't see anybody that came out of that looking any better than they went into it. The Dark Order, who was finally starting to get some traction, they lost. They came out of that looking however people want to perceive that. I don't think it did them any favors. The Good Brothers are essentially just other guys on the roster at this point. It's not even like they're trying to work an angle where they're showing up and doing whatever the hell they want and trying to draw heat. It's just like, okay, we're here to hang out. We're just on the roster. Like, it doesn't feel special. It doesn't feel cool. I don't know. I did not like the main event. I don't like the way it was booked. The only thing I liked was the fact that Kenny Omega sold the shit out of Dirty Deeds. I thought that was great. But everything else, including the stipulation that the Young Bucks had, whatever. It's not for me. Flush it down the toilet. That was actually going to be my low light. So I will let you carry on from there and try to convince me otherwise.
Okay. Well, first off, it's called the paradigm shift now, not the Dirty Deeds.
Oh, that's right. I was getting into arguments with people about Dean Ambrose's booking, so I'll call it the Death Rider, because in New Japan it's the Death Rider, and that's the most badass name for it. So we'll go with that today.
All right, so it's the Death Rider, Dirty Deeds. It's the same move, double arm DDT, however you want to take it. Now, the reason I like this match was I get a lot of what you're saying, but I feel like in this match, and usually when the Young Bucks have matches against experienced tag teams, or they work with the more experienced tag teams, they slow down a little bit. And I think their moves, while yes, they're fast paced, I think they slow down a little bit and they are a little bit more impactful, and there's more psychology behind it. I think if anybody looked good out of this match, it was the Dark Order in a losing effort. I mean, you're not going to have John Silver, Alex Reynolds, Uno, and Grayson beat the tag team champions of both AEW and Impact Wrestling. That's not going to happen. But I think there were moments where, like, even when John Silver's having his flurry there, where, like, maybe there's something here and he might actually pull an upset somehow. So, like, that's what I found. The excitement of it was good for me. I get what you're saying, though, where, like, the ref doesn't matter. Although I think Rick Knox did enforce the 10 count a couple times in this match, maybe stopped halfway through. But I would say there are other times where they definitely do that in tag division, and definitely with the Young Bucks it happens, but I don't think it was as bad this week as it was other weeks. That's all I'll say with that. Now, the thing that I was a little frustrated with, I don't know if I would call it my low light of the week or for AEW Dynamite, but we have this battle royal where the winners face the Bucks at Revolution. But now the Bucks are added to the match where they choose who they're going to face if they win it, hinting that, they're going to pick Gallows and Anderson. And we kind of had this little, rift between them already where Don Callis is injecting them into matches that the Young Bucks are supposed to be in, stuff like that. I think they're making the booking kind of convoluted. They already have rift there. Why create this battle royal just for the Young Bucks to win and face Gallows and Anderson? It seems a little now predictable and little, like I said, a little convoluted there.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's just kind of seems like there's always these weird stipulations that just kind of get brought from out of nowhere, whether it was the Young Bucks announcement, the handcuffs, unless I missed that with the Jungle Boy match. I mean, and that was what it was. I don't really necessarily, that doesn't bother me, but
the handcuff thing made a little sense because with that, it was Luchasaurus and Tully Blanchard and Cash Wheeler all agreed they would not get involved with the match. So that was, I guess, the best way to make sure that doesn't happen is to make sure Tully and Wheeler were handcuffed to Luchasaurus.
Right. And I don't have a problem with it. I'm not saying I took issue with it. I'm just saying, not every match needs to have some type of stipulation associated with it. Sometimes you can just have a match for the sake of having a match where there's a winner and the loser. Mm-hmm. And, they have a ranking system and they haven't even talked about the rankings. And I couldn't even tell you what. It's got to have been weeks since they've acknowledged that. And maybe they're getting away from it, but, I'm trying
to remember who that are FTR still the number one tag team? Like, have they lost that number one ranking since they lost the titles? I don't think they have.
I don't think so. I wouldn't even know who's in that top tier anymore because Pentagon's out. Brent's out.
I know Jurassic Express and FTR are in the top 5. I think they're 1 and 2. I know MJF and Jericho jumped to number 5 after winning last week. Grayson and Uno, I think, are number 3. And I'm trying to remember the 4th one. I don't have the rankings in front of me, but that's at least 4 of them. And speaking of MJF and Jericho, what'd you think of that tag match last night?
I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was a fine match. I think Jericho certainly was out to prove a point, considering the extra emphasis he put on his lion salt there.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was very good though. He did execute it very well.
It's his finishing move. It should be good. I would hope he can do it. I think, and I'm hoping that's leading towards Santana and Ortiz feuding with Jericho and MJF, and leaving the inner circle. And actually, you made me,
and Sammy Guevara too.
You're just reminding me of something. Do they have a new theme? Did they mesh together Chris Jericho's music? Okay.
Yes.
First of all, it was awful. But I wanted to point this out last week, and I forgot. I don't know why, but when I watch WWE product, I always, always, always hear their theme music loud and clear through the TV. AEW, I always struggle to hear the theme music. And I know to some people that's going to seem nitpicky, but have you ever actually listened to Eddie Kingston's theme song? Like just with, like, not on TV, like gone on YouTube or downloaded it and listened to it? It's actually a really freaking good song. I listen to it all the time when I'm working out. But anyway, that's besides the point. You can't hear their theme music when you're watching it on TV. And if you can, it's very distinct. Like, I thought something was messed up with Jericho's music last night, because like you just kind of heard faintly MJF's music in the background, and you're the TV guy, so you tell me what the hell's going on. Why can't they get that right?
It's not that they get it right or wrong. It's just how they mix it. So WWE, they feed the music into the mix as a separate channel into their audio mix. Whereas AEW, they're just taking the music that gets picked up from the camera mics, and that's what gets fed. So there's no like direct feed into the audio mix. Whereas WWE, it is. That's the difference. It's like when you watch ECW, when you watch DCW, they didn't have, Enter Sandman. You could hear Enter Sandman. It was like kind of faint because the microphones are what were picking it up. It wasn't like the actual music was getting fed into the mixer. That's what it is.
I wish they would fix that, because I think there's some guys there that have some really good theme music, and entrances are a huge part, especially when you consider a guy like Jungle Boy. They went out and bought the rights to that song.
Tarzan Boy.
Yeah, they were cheering it throughout his whole match. And if you could barely hear it, or even Chris Jericho as another example, you can hardly hear it on TV.
If I had to pick anything to critique this week, I'll do one from each show just to keep it fair. From AEW, while the match was still good, I think the Archer and Kingston match kind of was missing something. It didn't quite get me to that, oh my God, this match is awesome level. Some people liked it, but I think it was a little off the mark. And for NXT, I mean, the only thing that I think there wasn't anything on the show. And AEW kind of is like this as well, where nothing stood out as like, oh my God, this is like the moment of the week. Like, there wasn't like that. Everybody's talking about it. Maybe it was Dax and Jungle Boy. Maybe that's like the go-to for either show. But other than that, there wasn't like that, oh my God moment from either show.
Well, what do you think about Shaq and Cody? What do you make of that?
It wasn't a terrible segment, but I want to see where they go with it, because obviously Shaq has no wrestling experience. Jade has no experience. Red Velvet has very limited. I mean, she's been on Dark and AEW for a few months now. Cody's really the only one with wrestling experience here. So can he be the general for 3 people in that tag match? I think he can. And if anybody's going to be surprising, I think Jade is going to be very surprising. I think she's going to surprise a lot of people and actually show she can wrestle, though.
Well, I mean, wrestling fans, I'd imagine from a wrestling standpoint, I can't say I'm really interested in Cody and Shaq, but at the same time, for the business side of things, I like this because I think that it is going to get some extra attention for AEW and help them be successful and all those types of things. So,
yep.
Cody, whether he's on that show, the Big Show, is that what it's called?
The Go Big Show.
Go Big Show. Okay. The Big Show, I think, is the Big Show on Netflix that might have been canceled.
That was canceled after one season. I don't know how a Netflix show gets canceled after just one season, but it got canceled nonetheless.
So anyway, yeah, I understand that from a business perspective. I think that's going to be good for them. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I thought the segments overall were pretty good. The Sting and Darby thing, it's pretty much, week to week, it's kind of the same thing. I liked it. I thought it was fine. Thought that what Taz did, Team Taz breaking the tables and beating up the guys selling the t-shirts.
Yeah.
It does. I guess it serves its point until they actually have the street fight. It was fine. I will tell you this. Miro with Charles, I think I don't mind that. I can't say that I'm necessarily a fan of the way Miro's been booked. I wish he would have been booked a little bit stronger, but I don't mind him Chucky T being the butler for him. That's actually to me funny.
I would think you would be
Taylor. Chuck Taylor is not a guy that do people take him like seriously? Like, is that a top contender in tag or singles?
Well, the best friends were. The best friends are one of the best teams in the division.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I never took him seriously as like a. I don't think he's going to go out there and have a match with Cody and beat Cody for a championship.
No, I don't think anybody would ever think that.
So,
but I'm just a little surprised because like how you like the way you talk about how wrestling and the realism and guys look like badasses, and then Miro, who hasn't been booked strongly, like you pointed out, and you're actually liking this Miro Chucky T thing. I thought this would be kind of like cringeworthy in your opinion.
No, because I like comedy in pro wrestling as long as it's good comedy. Like to me, like Jericho in a vat of orange juice doesn't do it for me. You give me William Regal and Tajiri, they're gold together. You give me the Hurricane, as silly as that was, it worked because it was funny and he did the best that he could with it. Sometimes things work and sometimes things don't. And I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Chucky T, but I think that in this role, he's doing the best he can with it. And I think it's funny.
Well, all right. I'm a little surprised by that, but hey, I think stuff could be a little bit better. They're doing something with Miro, keeping him on TV. I want him to be kind of like what Rusev should have been in WWE. We're not really seeing that, but who knows? Maybe he breaks out of this Kip thing next week at Beach Break, and we see the real Miro that everybody wants to know and love. So we'll see. But ratings are in, Ralph. And last week, AEW went up surprisingly with all the coverage of the inauguration. This week, though, they went down. They went down to a 0.29 in the 18 to 49 demographic and got a total viewership of 734,000 total viewers. NXT went up to a 0.21 this week and got up to 720,000 total viewers. Only a difference of 14,000 viewers this week. And I know a lot of people, I don't know if did this happen to you? There were people complaining that the feed went out, and I guess it did if you were streaming. You were watching on cable, right?
Yeah, I didn't have an issue.
Yeah, so I originally was watching on the TNT app, and then it crapped out. Then I went to the Xfinity Stream app, and it was working just fine. Now, I know some people are probably going to say, oh, the streaming had something to do with it. That's why the ratings dropped. Guys, take it from someone that works in the business. Streaming has no effect on the ratings as far as collecting the data. If you are watching on streaming, the only way those are counted is if they watch or they play the same ads as they do on the cable feed. So Hulu, YouTube TV, and the TNT app, I don't think are counted in those ratings. So that is not the reason why their ratings dropped this week. I think it's more because of last week, how it was not the best show, and that carried over to this week.
I would agree. I did not think last week's show was any good. I think most people felt the same way. And usually if you have a good week by chance and you have a solid show, that's really indicative of the numbers the week following. But if you have a really bad show, and the numbers pretty much indicate that the week following, and I think that's what we see here. I think that Sting being there is good for AEW, but it's kind of running its course only because he's limited. We talked about that multiple times on this show. There's only so many different things you're going to be able to do with a guy that has a bad neck that's not going to wrestle on a weekly basis. So there's that, and I think that's starting to wear off. The thing with the Good Brothers and working with Impact Wrestling, again, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's a big deal to the diehard professional wrestling fans, but to other people, it's just like anything else. It gets a big reaction a little bit. It piques their interest for a week or maybe even 2 at the most, and then they're bored with it. So I don't think that's a big thing right now either. So between those 2 things and between the fact that last week's show was not very good, I just think people chose not to watch this week because it wasn't good last week. So.
And not only that, there wasn't really anything really promoted like, oh my God, we have to watch this week. Like if they promoted something like Moxley versus Omega 2, or would be 3 for the AEW championship, then that might have helped the hit of the ratings. But really, they were only going off of Jungle Boy versus Dax. And yes, we all thought it was a good match, but there are probably people that, didn't watch like, oh my God, I got to see that match. We'll see how next week goes. I think both shows are going to go up again. So, but with the ratings said and all that, which show did you think was better this week?
I'm going to say AEW because I thought, to me, the best match of the night, like I said, was Jungle Boy and Dax. And I thought that was a really solid match. So I'm going to go with that one.
I'll agree.
Dynamite.
Yeah, I'll go with Dynamite too, just for that sheer fact. I think, like I said, I think all the matches were pretty good. I think all the shows were good. I think the storyline progression was pretty good, but that Dax and Jungle Boy match was definitely the match of the night, so I'll go with that as well. But let us know in the comments what you thought was the show this week to be AEW Dynamite or NXT. Don't forget to share us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Subscribe to join the conversation, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble.